Bem-vindos ao episódio 17 do NuvemTALKS, edição de aniversário, estamos fazendo um ano. Para quem não me conhece, eu sou Mahmoud, arquiteta, designer de interiores e fundadora da Nuvem Design. Aqui discutimos como a inteligência artificial está transformando os fluxos de trabalho, ampliando a criatividade e redefinindo a forma como projetamos. A cada episódio, trazemos conversas inspiradoras com especialistas da área criativa que estão transformando o futuro do design. Hoje eu tenho o prazer de apresentar Daniel Escobar. Daniel é colombiano e a nossa conversa vai ser em inglês. Daniel Escobar is a New York-based creative designer, project architect and head of research and development at xFigura, with over 8 years of experience across educational, federal, and international architectural projects. He has led work for clients including the U.S. Air Force, Army Corps, and USAID while at Tech. He is co-founder of Diffusion, an online lab for architecture, platforms exploring AI, and architecture through research, workshops, and global dialogue. Daniel has co-founded papers on AI in design and 3D generation, built deep learning tools for spatial analysis, and exhibited digital work internationally, and led workshops on AI and computational architecture. Welcome, everybody. This is the episode 17th of NuvemTALKS. I'm very happy because it's the 1 year celebration of our podcast, and to celebrate this special day, this special achievement, I have here with me Daniel Escobar, a Colombian architect and head of research and development for xFigura. I'm not gonna explain a lot. He's gonna introduce himself. But first of all, I would love to welcome you to the show. Our audience is mostly Brazilian, and I'm sure that they're going to enjoy your presence here so much. So thank you for being here, Daniel, and welcome to NuvemTALKS.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maria, for the invitation. I'm happy to be here and glad to be a part of this.
That's great. It's kind of funny because you just gave a tutorial on digital futures this morning, and you're here with us. So we really appreciate your time. And I'm gonna start asking you about your journey, right? So we met recently through connections because of digital futures and some friends that we have in common. But for our audience, I would like you to tell us a little bit about your story. How did you become an architect until like nowadays? What are you doing?
So a little bit about me. I guess the way that I became an architect was since I was in high school. I was always interested in art, love to draw, just kind of like do things that were related a little bit more to drawing. And like construction, I had like this kind of like weird interest in like construction, like heavy machinery, like the big construction tools and things like that. And then in high school, what ended up happening is I took some of these drafting courses, and I got really into it. It was very fun for me to be able to like draw and kind of like think about space and 3D and like how do you represent space? How do you design like an actual space? So
Mm-hmm.
then along the way, I went from there to like study that at school, at college, and then I majored in architecture. And I was really fascinated. So before like I guess going into architectural school, I had no idea about like famous architects or anything like that, and what it actually means to be an architect. And
Right.
I think my first year becoming in contact with some of these uh, fundamental classes in architecture and learning about architects like Tadao Ando, Louis Kahn, really
Oh,
opened up my let's say my
explode.
interest. Yeah, it blew my mind a little bit.
Just the two that you mentioned are
Yeah.
amazing.
So yeah, I think like I dove deep into Tadao Ando. To me, it was like fascinating because it made me go beyond just essentially mere like walls or uh what in like a space could be, and not only like what the material, let's say the walls, the solidity of a space, um, and how something gets constructed, but go beyond that and like actually think about like lighting and like this kind of material that it's not, let's say you can't touch it, but it really has an impact on like inside of a space. And how do you take into account for that in design with these kind of materials? So that opened up my mind, and then from there, I got really into it, and I just went with it, and I said, okay, I'm gonna be doing this, so let's go for it.
That's
And
amazing.
then,
Did you study
yeah,
in Colombia?
no, I study here in the States, yeah, in New
Yeah.
York,
Where
yeah.
exactly did you
I
study?
I went to NYIT for
Mm-hmm.
architecture. Yeah,
Right.
and yeah, so that was that, and then from there, the rest is history, and then I'm here. Uh, I had a little bit of a path there where I did do architecture for quite a bit, and then
Mm-hmm.
sometime a few years after that, I was really interested in like computation. It
Right.
seems that there was kind of like this other world where you can connect data and simulation and just computational design approaches to arrive at a new set of performance-driven architectures. And that started to fascinate me a lot. Then I got into Grasshopper, learn how to start coding from there. That was kind of like my opening into like AI and machine learning. And then from there, I was really interested in like, okay, generative AI. I think it was like around, I don't know, 2016, 2017, that we had these new models called GANs, which was generative AI. And that opened something else, which was like, okay, maybe there's something here that can be useful in architecture or that we can bring from computer science into architecture. So then I went and studied computer science, Georgia Tech, uh, and then from there also did a master of computation at YAC, and then here I am, been doing research throughout that whole time and how do you apply AI computation to architecture, and now I'm leading R&D at xFigura. So it's a little bit of
Yeah.
a crazy path and a set of detours, but they were always based throughout my time as like what interests am I currently focused on and how do I push further.
And you said that you're currently working on xFigura.
It's ex figura, like it has the
Xfigura
yeah,
in
it has the
Italian.
Italian accent because of George.
Xfigura.
Uh, yeah, ex
Oh,
figura was
I
that,
wanted
yeah.
to like you to give us a little bit of the background of what is a xFigura, and maybe even how you got engaged with the company and what exactly you're doing there.
So I met George actually through digital features, and then we started collaborating through time, working on some research projects together. We did a couple of workshops, and then recently we did uh, an exhibition at the Venice Biennale. And
Mhm.
throughout that time, there was always this kind of like conversation with like, how do you make creative tools for architects and designers? So that was something we both had an interested in. Um, and it kind of like just evolved from there. At some point, it was more of the idea of like, well, like these tools are becoming readily available. There's people from other industries that are developing for a lot of use cases. Let's try to bring them together in a way that we can serve them to architects and designers,
Mhm.
connect to some of the workflows that they're accustomed to, like some 3D software and so on. And let's see like how we can design the platform so it revolves around that. And after that, decided to join full time at the end of last year just to get that going. And here I am now.
Amazing. Yeah. So I think we have to do like kind of a step back here because I understood that you have had contact with AI way before AI became popular per se, like there in 2022 when the ChatGPT was first released, right?
Mhm.
So can you give us more detail about your first contact with AI and how did you feel as well when this happened, when like we had the release of ChatGPT in 2022?
Maybe I can actually share screen. I have like a image for this actually.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, and I'll show you where it all started for me. So this is here. I think this was done before essentially AI was highly popular in architecture or just mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
we had written this paper in 2021. It was like the summer of 2021. We had done a workshop that got turned into a paper. Um, this was at this stage, it was kind of like these AI models that were starting to pop out and were the essentially the precursors for like Mid Journey, Stable Diffusion, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So they were early versions of it, and we were trying to see how we can start using them in architecture. Like, how do we take like these sort of sketches? What happens when we do a prompt to modify the sketch, and then see if we can get a rendering out of it? Um, so this was like really early stages AI. It was fascinating to see, but at this point we started to see, okay, maybe there's like some potential here, and then we started diving deep. At least from my end, I work with some of these guys here. I know Ricardo; he's actually from Brazil, um, and Fabio as well. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we were just having fun at this point in time and exploring these tools, and then I just kept going a little bit further. And then 2022 Mid Journey gets released in the summer. And that's where a lot of things kind of like changed a bit, even though the imagery at that point was still a little bit let's say it was not necessarily realistic. It had like some sort of visual abstraction,
Right.
but it was fascinating because now people started kind of like seeing it a bit and say, okay, how do we start working with it? I remember I started testing it a lot to see like what you can do with it. So it was like a really exciting moment. There was like a lot of excitement in that area. um, and then ChatGPT comes along and it's kind of like this chatbot that you can tell it and ask it questions and it'll just give you answers. And now this space kind of like opens up. Essentially, ChatGPT make this like really mainstream. So people just started testing it and it was like very fascinating. It was like a big experiment worldwide to just see how we can use these tools.
I like to ask this question because, of course, like you were involved with this like before when like Mid Journey was released, first released. It was shocking for the ones that could experience that moment, right? Because it
Hmm.
was really, at least from my experience, it was amazing to text and see an image coming out of it with my description. And of course, I don't think I had the words even to describe the impact that I thought that would create. And now we know it, right? But it's really cool to see that you like got surprised and got like really excited with this change at that moment.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You explain how was your first contact with AI, and now you're working with xFigura. Before we dive into xFigura, are you working parallel projects as well, or this is your main position right now?
I'm full with xFigura. I have
Mhm.
done some other research and kind of like exhibitions and projects before.
Mhm.
A lot of the previous stuff that I've done has revolved essentially around this space of how do you use AI in architecture, maybe more from a um, experimental research base, just to test out some of the ideas that are kind of popping up at the forefront of AI, like how do we do certain things with AI. One of the, I guess, like the main interest of mine over the years has been like what happens when you start making these images into 3D, right? And what does that mean? Because I think we're at this point where like we can make really pretty images, but at some point in time we have to cross this other question, which is like, what does it mean to turn an image into a 3D space? It's already happening. I think it's like fascinating that this is already happening, and it opens up a lot of questions like what does it mean for design to actually have this new type of media that we can generate like immersive experience in 3D. Um, so that's something else that I can also show if you want. I might have, yeah, like some examples here. This is like a previous
Mhm.
project here that I'd
Mhm.
done with George and Carlos. And it was a little bit of that. So this was like 2023 maybe, where we were starting to explore video models.
Uh-huh.
Um, how do you turn or use these tools to create essentially a 3D model using some of these video models and reconstruct it in a way that you can make edits to the original 3D model. Um, and then that opens up like a lot of questions where these kind of approaches in generative AI essentially use the image as a way to reproject it into 3D space. So the camera becomes like the proxy for 3D geometry. And so I was
Mhm.
really curious to see how far we can take that and does it have a use case in architecture?
And regarding this development in xFigura, there's a lot of designers still using large language models instead of
Hmm.
multi-model canvas platforms. And I understand that xFigura is a platform that works with this system. I am not so familiar to xFigura as well. I had the pleasure to participate with Digital Futures on the conversation with George, which was amazing. I super recommend people to go there and watch that as well. If you're a Spanish speaker, you can watch the Daniel's lecture for today. But can you talk a little bit about the platform, the way it
Hmm.
works, before we dive into the projects and how you're developing it? Why is that? Do you think architects today they have to go towards this direction of moving to a more complex and complete platform? And
Hmm.
why xFigura is also like different from the majority of the platforms that are available today, that are not really dedicated to architects.
Xfigura, what it tries to do at its most basic level is to bring a lot of these, like you said, like multimodal um, generative AI tools that currently exist in the open market. So anything from like the latest image generation models, video generation models, 3D generation models, and bring them all into one place in a way that it's easy to use, where you can begin to stitch them together. Um, so essentially, you can start from an image, you can make edits on that image, and then from there, you can go and create a video out of that image. You can even go and say if you have like a single object, you can turn that into a 3D model, download it, bring it into Rhino or kind of like a CAD software. So it
Mhm.
becomes like a way to work with these tools really easily. You can get going up in minutes. Uh, like the main goal was like the previous processes that might have taken hours or days at end. You can do them probably in like 30 minutes or so now. Um,
Mhm.
so it's a new way of interacting with these tools. I think what we're setting out to do here is to essentially be more deliberate in how we integrate existing architectural design workflows. So maybe like Rhino, Revit, and these types of platforms. And how do we start also working with what they offer as far as like data, the geometry, and things like that, and then move them into Xfigura, where you would have an AI layer of intelligence that can start interacting with all of them. And that's a little bit of the future. I think we're um, from our side, we see that as the pathway forward, where
Mhm.
we would be able to add this extra layer of intelligence, whether it be an LLM or agents, and then you can start doing and applying intelligence and actions on top of what you're generating.
Right. And for me, it's clear, but I wanted you to like explain it to the audience as well, because it's not only about moving from multiple separate tools to one platform where you can integrate a lot of tools. So this is already like a path of streamlining a process, but also you have the chance to repeat some workflows that you created already, or to enhance or change or modify according to the requirements of the client, for example, because it's always a back and forth in architecture, right? Like you present the project and then the client says this and that, okay, I want changes here. And if you're using like other models that are, or chat models, for example, it's super complicated to start from where you stopped and recover that model and modify that model with platforms as such. You can, right? So I'm seeing already like advantages of using that. Is there any other that you would say it is important also to consider?
Yeah, I think you make like a pretty good point. So it is like a living archive of your design process.
Mm-hmm.
You're essentially generating, creating on a canvas. Maybe I can share screen so you have
Let's
a
share,
canvas
because
open.
I think people need to see
Yes,
how it
yes.
works, right?
So
Okay,
I'll load it up
let
here.
me share here. We're good. Maybe this time I'm gonna put the full screen like that.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it is streamlining the where these tools are located, but then at the same time it becomes this kind of like living archive where you can collect how you are thinking and iterating or designing with these tools. In some cases, I know, for example, that like some of the companies that we're currently working with, they're able to spin up a variation of designs, maybe to start from
Mm-hmm.
a base, and they can start developing a set of options to pretty much deliver to the client in about a day or so. So if the
Right.
clients have any questions or any modifications, they can always come back, redo them, and the turnaround process now becomes super fast. Um, and now that opens up a lot of exciting possibilities where, to some extent, it becomes about like how creative do you want to be? How do you think about like maybe changes that you want to make to designs? How do you take feedback and translate it directly here? Um, so that becomes your center of how you start to record all of that. And then obviously
Mm-hmm.
from here, you can start saving all these workflows. We have like a set of templates that then you can use. You can use your own templates you can use from the community.
Yeah.
And then you can create your own templates and be able to reload them onto the canvas and keep them going from there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a little bit about that.
I like it very much because of what we said, like the repetition. You can have the project there, and you can use the same workflows in different projects. Once you build up your own workflow, or you can even use workflows from other people that are there in the community as well. I wanted to ask you about outputs, right? Because
Mhm.
is there any specific reason why, or is it correct to assume that the outputs in a platform that is fully dedicated to architecture would be better than the outputs provided by similar platforms but not fully dedicated to architecture?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of the platforms are essentially using the same generative AI models. So there is
Right.
essentially like a across every sort of I don't know, online platform that you can think of that uses these models. They usually come from very similar providers. So the outputs essentially we are relying on third-party providers to provide us with that what you would call a foundational model that has been trained. It costs a lot of money to train these foundational models. They can only be done by a specific type of company. There's a set of skills that are involved in that. So like the Googles, the Open AIs, um,
Yeah.
Black Forest Labs, they're able to produce these types of models. So we just take the benefit from them and we can use them, right? Um, Directly from there, we do have a set of examples on the platform and templates of how you would actually use them for architectural design workflows. That
Mhm.
comes a lot, for example, when we do onboarding for companies, we teach them like what are some of the workflows that are very specific to architecture and how they can take advantage of that. Um,
Right.
so that becomes a way for us to exchange our knowledge and then teach companies how to do them, how to
Mhm.
actually best adjust the output so they can get the highest quality related to architecture and interior design. Um, the other part about this that I would say about the outputs is that you have control in what you want to get out of it. I think that's also the important part here. And as an example,
Right.
you can always prompt what you want. We don't
Mhm.
want to dictate exactly how users use the platform or have like some sort of opinion of how you should use it. Um, I think that's where we allow the users to have the freedom to use these tools as they want, but we'll just provide them with like the basic interface that they can start working right away.
Right. How many models are living inside of the xFigura platform nowadays?
Yeah, so we'll probably have around close to like 50 models,
50.
all ranging from image models, video models, 3D models.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
we also have, let's see, I don't have an example here. This one is kind of like special. It is a newer type of model. It's done in a different way from traditional kind of like 3D models, which is just the mesh.
Mhm.
Um, Let me see. I can run it while we talk here. I'll show it after. Um, but it's like a point cloud that you can step into, and it looks highly realistic. So
Mhm.
if I take a look here, this is some of the tool, like the models that we have. So text, you can use it like a chat GPT, so you can talk to it, tell it to give you prompts and so on, or describe
Right.
images. Image models generate an image, make edits to images. You have the video models, you have the 3D models, upscales, also like kind of like in paint, and then like the wordless, which I'm going to be showing in a bit.
Right.
Um, so there's a little bit of a lot to like work with here.
That's really really cool. So let's talk about process then. We are seeing already that this is an infinite canvas. We have the nodes, and you work by connecting the nodes to get the outputs desired, right? Is there any principle for a person who is starting to dive into this model of working, or anything that is important to understand prior to diving into the platform?
Yeah, so the way that it works nodes is that you would start from like a point. So it could be like an image.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then from there you can start branching out. So the idea here is, for example, in this case here, my starting point is this image. I can then
Right.
begin to make, changes to this input image. I can even go as far as saying like, oh, generate like a different viewpoint perspective inside the building, which
Right.
lets you let the model in a way interpret what should be in this point. You can do view changes like so, but then like what's really cool is that if you see that you can like actually see these options together in one shot
Mm-hmm.
visually. And then from there, you can begin to extend it out where like you can say, okay, I can also create a video from that. Let me like visualize it. Let me see what else I can do from a video. So then now you start building out these set of kind of iterative workflows where you can always are able to trace it to that initial point. So that's, I would say like that's kind of like the key component of the node-based approach here.
That's very cool. Can you show us for one example, maybe something connected more to interior design or architecture, anything you would like to show us as a process? So everything that was done and what were the results that you achieved?
Yeah, sure. So maybe as an example, like I can show you guys some of the things that we can do here. So a
Yeah,
lot of the platform is also uh, like a lot of the workflows that come on the platform are really useful for image editing. So usually some of the things that we see people doing is like they'll start off from an image. Uh, they can come in here, um, make annotations to the image, add like a prompt to the image or on top of the image. And then you can
right.
start getting things like this, right? It'll make the modifications like so, or add the
Mhm.
elements that you want. You can do things like this, add a person, it'll start doing things like that. Um,
Yeah,
you can also begin to segment regions out like this, and then tell it to add people inside of those regions. And the
okay.
way that it works is very straightforward. You can say add a person in the red area, and then like
Mhm.
here it is. Um, for interior design, so some of the things that we can do, which maybe it's kind of like adding objects, like let's say this example here.
Mhm.
Um, I can say, and this one is like a really fun example, but let me go here. So place this swan floating in the pool. You can do things like that.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing would be like if you want to change areas here, for example, like I want to modify this space. This is a pool, but like I want to change it, turn it into a sitting area. You can get something like this.
Typical client change.
Exactly.
Typical client request. Okay, no pool anymore. Sitting area. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
then from there, you can say, okay, let's populate it. Let's add people to it.
Mhm.
Let's just see the scene, change the time of the day, and so on.
Mhm.
And then you can start working like that. From there, you can even go as to further and say, I don't know, change the materiality. This is another fun example here, but you can say, okay, I want to change the materiality of the columns. I want
Yeah.
to add objects in certain places, change the materiality of the columns like so. And then you can start like really just kind of like exploring these ideas, either to these kind of like annotations and visual prompts, which makes it
Mhm.
really intuitive to work with an image, because if you try to prompt it just trying to tell it like, hey, I want to place this and that, how would you indicate it spatially? um, so we are opening up these set of tools like the editor, where you can make the annotations directly and just start working on top of the image. And sometimes I would even say that you don't even have to write a prompt, you can just use the annotated image.
Wow. Yeah, that's very useful. That's great. For those two workflows that you've shown, like we have the first image done already. So it's like the architect or the designer has done a conceptual image and is
Hmm.
working on this conceptual image inside of the platform. Do you have any examples where you're developing the concept, for example, like you're starting with the ideation of the concept?
Uh, yeah, that's a good question. Maybe not on this board,
Yeah.
because usually, like usually what we see, and maybe this is an interesting kind of like conversation topic. What we end
Hmm.
up seeing is that most of the time, architects or designers, they already have like a concept in mind in some way, or like a rough sketch.
Right.
Um, and then what you can do, so it's kind of like this sort of process here. Maybe
Hmm.
this is a little bit
Okay.
more for architecture, but it's kind of like this sort of process where you would start from like an original design intent. That's kind of like the value that the architect or designer brings. Um,
Hmm.
and then from there, they can start editing or making changes to the original design intent in a visual way. There's kind of like these examples where maybe you start from a sketch and then you slowly start to build it up, and then you get to something like this, right? Fairly quick.
Wow. Yes.
Um, but then this becomes, it could either be an end result or it can be like a bridge into another direction that you might want to
Mhm.
do, right?
Mhm.
So maybe as an example, like I can say, okay, I like this image here. I started from a sketch. Maybe I did something really quick just to get my thoughts on paper. I'll do like a
Mhm.
quick rendering, but then I'm actually interested of what it might look like to be inside of that lobby. So then you can do things like this, drag this out, and I can say, I'm pick a model here, like Banana 2, pick
Mhm.
the image ratio and say, uh, create create a view from inside the lobby space. And then I can set like multiple options. Okay, that's cool. And then I can just hit generate. So now this is kind of like opening it up a bit where like you're not just relying on this image as your end result, but then maybe you can say to the AI, give me something from the interior. What do you see? And then now
Mhm.
maybe that sparks your ideas to say, oh, I like this. Let me start taking this as a brainstorming or a creative direction.
Yeah, it's an iterative exchange, right? Where you give the machine your ideas, the machine also gives you back some ideas as well.
Exactly. And then, for example, like you can get something like this, right?
Uh-huh.
And then if I open
Wow.
it up, like here it is, like, so
Yeah.
this is like one way that you can start working with it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then you can say,
Mhm.
oh, I like this idea, but maybe like I want to make a change to it. So maybe I want to select, let's say, one of these to keep working on. Let's say I like this one a lot, but then I can say, okay, let me change the materiality of the stairs. So change or yeah, let's change the floor. Change the floor to triangular pattern, just as an example.
Mhm.
And let's see what it does. Here, I'll pick my model again. Okay, select and then render. So then you can start doing these types of like, how do you call it? Like you just start building from this, right, visually.
Yeah. Yeah. This really impacts the way we design, right? Like we're designing differently now because of the existence and the possibility of these tools, right?
Correct. And then you get to this, right? Where like now you can see that it changed the floor. So now this gives you like a
Mhm.
different experience. Um, and then if I compare the two images from before, you can kind of
Ah,
like
you
see the
have a
change.
slider. I didn't see this. You have this slider where you can compare the first one with the second. Awesome.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
very cool. Uh-huh. I love it. I'm very curious to try it. Since I saw George's presentation, I'm very interested in testing it for my workflows in my company. Do you
Yeah.
have any other workflow that you would like to share with us so people can see something that is different from this part of the ideation and the interior design?
Yeah, sure. So maybe, okay, I'll show a quick example here while this one loads. Oh, let me show you this one here, the one that I just sent out to create into a 3D world. I'll show this
Right.
one, and then I'll show
Ah,
you an example where like you can start from like let's say like a CAD drawing,
right.
and then
Ah,
start working
cool.
on top of that. Yeah. So
Awesome.
this is how that image becomes a 3D space.
Wow.
Um, and then you can start to like move around. This is really like a recent release of this type of generative AI models. Uh, but then you can kind of like see this where like you can now dive into the image and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
details to it that the model has to imagine, but it becomes like a three-dimensional experience. So you can think from here like, oh, what if we actually send this into a VR headset, and now we can make annotations outside of this 3D space. Maybe we are discussing
Mhm.
it internally for design or with a client, and then you can say, "Oh, I really like this, but like let's change the furniture, let's change like the color here and so on." But you can start to move around inside of this image in like a way that without AI wasn't previously
Yeah.
done before, and
Yeah.
you don't have to model this. in like some other CAD software. It literally took us what, like a few minutes to get this out.
Yeah.
Um, so it becomes another approach of using this kind of media to be able to generate fast concepts, test them out, and
Mhm.
then see if it's an idea you want to further pursue.
Again, a big change on the design process, right? Because you're literally starting with the 3D, but not an image of the 3D, but an immersive 3D, right? And you're
Exactly.
taking feedback from this image. You're looking to this image and seeing what it works for you, what it doesn't, to build actually your actual model or your actual project. This is very interesting.
Exactly. And then, so this is like one of these possibilities that we're saying, well, this is like
Mhm.
cutting edge AI. How do we start taking these tools and bring them here so architects and designers can start using it? And a lot of this centers around of developing user interface features that are kind of like essentially catered to architects. So maybe we can start annotating in this 3D space and have it re-render out so that now you
Mhm.
can also continue with the editing workflow on the platform.
Which model are you using to do that?
Uh, this one here is called Marble from World Labs.
No.
And if
Okay.
you go here to generate, you can uh, click on this one and it'll bring
Mhm.
you to that. And then you just
Perfect.
connect the image and then hit generate. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think I also sent it for this one. Okay, this one is still, so that lobby that we just imagined,
Mhm.
I send it to that same thing. So we'll come back in a bit and see what that lobby actually looks like in 3D.
And how does it work for an architect that is interested to have a membership of xFigura? How much does it cost?
For an architect, we do have a pricing page here. Let me
Is
see
it
if I can.
similar? My question is, would it that be similar to okay, you have it there. Like it's a starter plan is $20, and
Yeah,
then you have
$22,
mhm,
and then we have like the pro plan, which is 60 a month. If you do annually, you'll get a discount. But the whole platform works with a system of credits. So every generation consumes a set of credits, and that's how you can essentially manage the way that you would use the credits. So,
mhm,
for example, in the case of images, if I go back here to an image, let's say this one here, Nano Banana 2,
mhm,
consumes 3 credits, right?
right.
So every generation is 3 credits. If you change the size or the resolution, let's say you want to increase this to 4K, then that's going to give you about 12 credits. So it'll multiply by that number because the image is larger.
Right. And what about privacy? How does it work within the platform? Are those images visible for all? The images you generate are visible for others? Do you have like privacy mechanisms inside, or is it like connected to every model that you use?
Everything that you generate on the platform is private to you.
Hmm.
So all the data, all the information that you're producing inside a platform only belongs to you. There's no retraining you're generating. We have contract agreements with some of the third-party providers of models that all the information is belongs to the user of xFigura. There's no retraining. There's no data breaches. There's nothing like that. So security is like the number one, uh, say one of the number one pillars of our platform. We're working with some of the top companies in the world. They're really careful of security and intellectual property. So we cater to that and make sure that our security is enterprise grade for everybody.
Perfect. This sounds good. Sounds great. Show us what you created there.
Okay,
Wow.
so here's the lobby. Let's see what else.
That's really impressive. It was just done, just now.
Yeah, it took a few minutes,
Yeah,
but then it's amazing. Like you can kind of like see that the model interprets it in a certain way,
yeah.
and starts to build out the 3D space around it.
Mhm. Really impressive. It's wonderful. Wonderful. Wow, that is great. I think it's a great tool, and I really would like to give it a try. And for the people that are interested in trying, is just like really setting up the account. And I know you have also like some tutorials, right?
Correct. There's
Mm-hmm.
some on our YouTube page. If you look up xFigura on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
we'll have a few tutorials on how to use the platform. Um, there's also a set of templates that you can use once you get in. For example, some of the ones that you see here that are community based. As an example, maybe I can show you guys a few of those. So if I come here, I select one of these, let's say this one. You'll see something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Where it'll provide you with the workflow that somebody else has created. Um, For example, in this case here, they use the text node. So the text node has GPT-5 embedded in it. So you
Right.
can ask it to enhance your prompt, or you can, as an example, some of the things that I like doing is something like this, where I can drag this out to the text node and say, extract the lighting conditions um, as a detailed prompt. And then you can run it. And like one of the key things about this is that you can essentially start getting stuff from images and use this as a way to pass it on if you want to use this prompt from another image. As an example, let's say I want to use it for this one, pass it on, and then hit generate. And what it'll try to do is that sometimes these models, they can capture the prompt really well from images if you ask it for specific parts, and it would translate directly into a new rendering. It'll come very close to the original one. So that's one way to use some of the templates and be able to get started like right away.
So for a person that is interested in going and dive into the platform, this is your recommendation, right? Like to investigate and explore the community and the available templates.
Correct. And also check us out on YouTube. We also have a few tutorials on there. If
Mm-hmm.
you search xFigura on YouTube, you'll be able to catch some of the tutorials how to use the platform to get started right away.
So we're gonna stop sharing the screen now because we're getting to the end of our conversation. I really like to learn a lot more about xFigura and your professional journey, your position there, and how you're exploring AI. The last question that I wanted to do for you is what do you recommend for students that are starting or leaving the architectural school now,
Mhm.
or professionals that didn't dive into AI? What would you tell them how to start or how to implement this in their practices?
So one of the key things, I guess, about how to start with AI is that there is a lot of information already out there. Um, for example, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Anthropic's, Claude, like all these chat models that have really friendly user interfaces. I would say, like, if you want to get started, just go start talking to them, start using
Yeah,
them,
I
like
agree.
see what they can and cannot do, like test them out. Like there's literally it's never been easier, let's say, to start talking to one of these models and start using them to either generate images, to get information about something, like do some sort of web research, um, and just see based on maybe things that are related to your everyday task, whether it's at work or school. What are some of the things that you can ask these models to do for you? That's where you'll begin to understand what is possible. And so that would be my recommendation, is just to dive in, get started. I think we're all in the same space. Some people might have been using it for a little bit of a longer time, but this space is constantly changing. So you kind of have to try to be able to learn how to use these tools.
Yeah, right. And we are kind of like everyone in the same position where we are all learning, right? Like even for the ones that are longer in the path and using these tools for more time,
Hmm.
because of the fast improvement and the evolution, you cannot stop learning, right? It's all the time like dedicated to it. I think it's super important. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us here. If anyone is interested in following you, talking to you, connecting, how can they find you on social media?
They can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Right.
If you guys are interested on xFigura or just AI topics in general in architecture and design, feel free to reach out.
I really liked our conversation, and let's hope that we can organize something here in Miami in person. That would be super great to have you here and talk to the students here as well. So
Awesome.
thank you so much for your presence, Daniel. And this was the episode 17 of NuvemTALKS. Vem com a nuvem.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria.
Bye.